if you're, let's say, over 55,
Mm.
or maybe even just getting close to it, you've probably started to notice this.
Mm.
This quiet little question in the back of your mind when you have to make a choice.
Mm.
It's not, a big panic or anything. It's more like a subtle shift,
Mm.
a change in gravity.
Mm.
Decisions that used to feel like a quick hop now feel more like a very slow, very careful step.
Exactly. And if you find yourself, sitting on those choices for a lot longer, or you feel this heavier weight of the consequences sticking around long after you've committed, you're not alone.
Right.
And you are definitely not failing. I think the common quiet wonder is always something like, why does this feel so much harder than it used to?
And we should say right up front,
Mm.
we are not here to sell you some kind of quick fix or a 7-step plan to get you making decisions like you were in your 20s.
No, that would be missing the point entirely.
Yeah.
Our mission for this deep dive is to really pull out the core insights from the source material and establish this one profound truth. This new, slower, more careful approach to making decisions. It is not a sign of decline.
Yep.
It is entirely logical, it's valid, and it's actually a highly rational response to where you are in your life.
So we're digging into the fundamental why behind that hesitation. We're using the data to validate what you might already be feeling intuitively. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So the sources we've looked at, they really identify this moment as a distinct, observable shift. It's not that you've lost your curiosity or you don't want options anymore.
No, not at all. You still want to travel, you want to start that new project, maybe learn an instrument.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's a very definite change in what feels like an acceptable rate of error. You were just, and I think rightly, less willing to rush into things.
We really need to name that experience first, because I think once you put a name to it, you can start to separate it from self-blame.
Right.
You still have the engine, the ambition is still there, but now a big decision, a career pivot, or a major investment, it just carries a profound weight that it simply didn't carry 10 or 20 years ago.
And this is where the conflict comes from, right?
Yeah.
This is what makes the feeling so unsettling. Your internal reality, your very informed sense of consequence is constantly butting up against the pressure from the outside world.
Oh, that pressure is relentless, especially online, in the digital world. The whole environment, from your social media feed to marketing emails, it insists you have to decide faster.
Commit earlier.
Commit earlier, and the big one, act now. There's this pervasive sense that if you miss this one tiny window, you lose everything. It's a manufactured urgency.
And when you pause, which is the rational thing to do, that environment can make you feel like you're the one holding things up, like you're the problem. So if you've been pausing longer, or you feel like you need to look behind the curtain on something, or you really need to understand the mechanics before you say yes,
Right.
that is not a personal failure.
It is a real and natural response. We have to validate that feeling right away.
That pause is completely justified.
And we can actually state the central insight from all the data very directly. Decisions carry more weight after 55 because, quite simply, their consequences are exponentially greater.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
That is the fundamental difference. When you look at the cost differential between a mistake you make earlier in life versus one you make later, the math completely flips on its head.
It's a whole new calculation.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. Earlier in life, if you made a bad career move, the sources show you had two huge, readily available resources on your side. First, you had time.
Decades of it.
Decades, exactly, to recover financially and get back on track. And second, you just had this raw, seemingly endless energy. You could restart, pivot, work nights and weekends to fix the mistake.
And society was more tolerant of it. You were more tolerant of it. It was just a learning experience.
Right. But later in life, that whole calculus inverts. The runway is shorter, which means time matters exponentially more. Losing, say, 2 years to a bad investment or a failed business, that's a much higher percentage of your remaining active years than it was at 35.
And this gets us to the really critical piece that I think gets overlooked a lot, the non-financial costs.
Yes.
We're not just talking about money here. We're talking about confidence and, maybe most importantly, energy. A misstep now costs a significant amount of your physical and cognitive energy, and both of those are, finite resources at this stage.
Let's stay on that energy point for a second, because the sources really hammer this home. They highlight its scarcity.
Right.
When you're younger, you can fail spectacularly on a Tuesday, and, by Wednesday morning, you're ready to start some huge new thing. You have the resilience, the physical fuel to just absorb that shock and restart instantly. Now, though, If a decision goes south, the recovery phase is exhaustive. It takes up a bigger chunk of your cognitive load. That's the mental bandwidth you need for everything else in your life. And it costs physical energy that takes much, much longer to replenish.
So a bad decision now doesn't just empty your bank account. It actually reduces your capacity to fight another day.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
That reduction in capacity is what makes the stakes feel so incredibly high.
And the source material also points out something else. A poor decision now can disproportionately cost you trust in yourself.
Oof. Yes.
If you make a bad, high-stakes choice, it can erode that belief that you can reliably make good choices in the future. And this can lead to what some behavioral economists call it's a justified loss aversion.
Loss aversion is so key here. It's that principle that the psychological pain of losing something is about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining that same thing.
Right.
In your youth, the potential gain often feels like it outweighs the perceived loss because, the loss is seen as reversible. You can earn the money back. You can find a new job.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Once you realize that the loss, especially the loss of your time and your energy, is largely irreversible, that aversion to loss becomes completely and totally rational. Your brain isn't just making up fear out of nowhere. It's conducting a profoundly accurate risk assessment based on genuine non-renewable assets.
So when you pause now, when you slow down and you really study the landscape of a decision, you are not doing it because you're unsure of yourself or because you've lost your momentum. You're pausing because you understand consequences. You get the true cost of failure better than you ever did before. That slowness is not fear. That is what we call experience.
And that experience is a form of rational intelligence. But, and this is the big but, this rational intelligence is constantly being undermined by the environment we're all forced to operate in now.
Right. And we see the problem get so much worse because the modern digital world where, let's face it, so much of our life and commerce and connection happens, it just wasn't built with this stage of life in mind.
It's a system problem.
It's a system assumption problem. It operates on a set of assumptions that are fundamentally flawed for an experienced user.
That whole digital environment that we're all swimming in is optimized for a very specific demographic, one that has maximum time and minimum consequence.
Yes, it's obsessed with speed, with urgency, with aggressive momentum. It's constantly feeding on this now or never thinking, which pushes you to commit before you have any real clarity.
So let's detail some of those flawed assumptions that are kind of baked into the system.
Okay, so the online world, the platforms, the services we use, they all assume a few things about you. First, unlimited retries.
Right, the idea that you can just close one door and 3 new ones will open tomorrow without any significant cost.
Second, they assume endless energy, that you have the physical and mental horsepower to pull in all-nighters to fix a mistake or, pivot your whole life aggressively on a dime.
And the third one, which is huge, is low cost of failure. The idea that a bad subscription, a wrong investment, a failed side hustle, it's just a minor lesson, something you can easily absorb and move on from.
And you can see this everywhere, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. Think about those rapid-fire trading platforms that encourage you to take daily, urgent actions, or the constant pressure to join these expensive online courses that promise you'll be a millionaire by next Tuesday. The system is designed to reward immediate, low-thought commitment.
And that structure is incredibly hostile to the experienced person. When you were 25, that low cost of failure was probably true. If you wasted $1,000 on some bad scheme, you had years of high earning potential to make it back. If you hated a new job, you could quit and find another one in a few weeks.
But that assumption just completely breaks down later in life.
Completely. The retries are not unlimited. The energy is certainly not endless. And failure is deeply expensive. It can result in a genuine reduction in your quality of life. The systems are just fundamentally misaligned with the user's reality.
And this is the resulting psychological trap for the listener, right? When those core assumptions, unlimited retries, endless energy, when they break down for you, you internalize that friction.
Yes.
You start feeling like you're the problem, that you're too slow or you're malfunctioning or you're just being overly cautious.
When in fact, the source material is so clear on this, you are not the problem.
The environment is the problem.
The environment is the problem. It is optimized for a user who, frankly, does not exist past a certain age, and it actively penalizes the rational, wise behavior of an experienced adult.
Realizing that the system is the problem is incredibly liberating, but it doesn't solve the immediate decision sitting in front of you.
No, it doesn't. So we have to move from just diagnosing the problem to, well, at least to validation.
Yeah.
We need to translate this earned wisdom into a confident pace for making decisions.
So let's just deliver that explicit, critical reframing as clearly as we can. Nothing is wrong with you.
Nothing.
The hesitation you feel is not a failure of nerve. It is a sign of accrued wisdom.
And if you find yourself being slower to decide, that is not a weakness. It's an informed, it's deliberate, and it's a necessary approach to preserving your non-renewable assets. Your time, your energy, your confidence.
And if you're more careful now, that's not fear. That's a deep, healthy respect for the consequences we've been talking about. And that's a respect that only comes from living through enough mistakes to know what they actually cost.
And what about the person who wants to see the downside first?
Yes. If you're the type of person who now wants to understand the downside completely before you even bother looking at the potential upside, that is not negativity.
Not at all.
According to the source material, that is wisdom. It's wisdom earned through years of dealing with reality. You are no longer easily fooled by the shiny promise on the surface.
You know, the great mistake that many people make at this stage is trying to force themselves back into an earlier version of themselves.
Oh, I see that all the time.
They see the social pressure for speed, and they try to adopt the decision-making velocity of their younger years, and they do it precisely when the cost of making an error is at its absolute highest.
And that's often when people make their most reckless choices,
Yeah.
because they're ignoring their own hard-won wisdom.
Exactly. You don't need to do that. What you need is not more speed, it's more clarity.
Right.
You need decision-making approaches that respect your current stage of life. Approaches built for high-consequence environments, not for environments that assume you get unlimited do-overs.
Understanding this difference, this fundamental shift in the cost of your time and your energy, that's the crucial first step. It's what allows you to start trusting your own pace again and to stop feeling rushed or unsettled by the modern world.
It gives you permission to be where you are.
So we've taken a deep dive here. We've moved from that quiet internal question all the way to the profound rationale behind it. And I think the main takeaway is this. More difficult decisions don't mean you're behind.
No.
They mean you see what truly matters now. It means you're paying attention to the real high stakes involved.
And that realization is such a powerful foundation to stand on. It's where you can start to rebuild confidence in your own mature decision-making pace.
So what does this all mean for the steps ahead? I guess it means this conversation is really just the beginning.
Exactly. This validation, it just sets the stage for future deep dives where we can get into the practical tools for moving forward.
Okay, like what?
Well, we'll need to look at how you differentiate high-consequence choices from low-consequence ones, and what truly makes a decision safe or unsafe, specifically in the context of having finite energy.
And we also have to learn how to tell the difference between mere risk, which is often reversible, versus true irreversibility. Those are the decisions that carry the highest cost to your time and your confidence.
Yes. Ultimately, the goal is to find out how to move forward confidently without gambling your hard-earned future. It's about respecting both your current energy levels and your deep accumulated experience.
That sounds like an essential toolkit to build.
So before we close this deep dive, let's leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you face your next big choice.
Okay.
If the decision you're currently facing carries an inherently high weight, if that difficulty is what's slowing you down and forcing you to be careful, does that intense difficulty not, in itself, clarify exactly what you value most? Try to use the weight of that choice not as a burden, but as a diagnostic tool, a tool for clarity.
That's a really powerful perspective to carry forward. We'll leave you with that thought as you reflect on the choices ahead, knowing that slowing down is actually a sign of rational, earned intelligence.
Take care, and we look forward to continuing this conversation with you next time.